I'm very happy to welcome you to today's event. My name is Jada Patterson, and I'm the director of the Goethe Pop Up Kansas City, which is a mini branch of Germany's cultural institute, the Goethe-Institut. I welcome you together with our program coordinator, Julia Pataki, who's handling all the technology. She will remain invisible for you, so I'd like to take this opportunity now to say thank you, Julia. For those of you unfamiliar with the Goethe-Institut, we are Germany's cultural institute worldwide. One of our core missions is to create a space for dialogue, support the voices of experts and emerging artists in their fields, and enable people to be part of the conversation. Our place is not at the forefront of the conversations themselves, but rather as a facilitator and an active listener to explore ways that we can do better. The Kansas City installation of There Are Black People in the Future and today's artist talk takes place in the framework of a large regional project called Shaping the Past, in which we and our partners, Monument Lab and the Federal Agency for Civic Education, invite you to explore together with artists, activists, and intellectuals how to remember the past and what implications this has for our present and also future. Today, we would like to invite you to discuss with Shaping the Past fellow and artist Alisha B. Wormsley. We from the Goethe Pop Up invited Alisha to bring her project, There Are Black People in the Future, to Kansas City and to start a dialogue in our community. She put her statement on a large billboard on Broadway and Pershing, right next to Union Station, and together with curator and project coordinator Jada Patterson, invited 9 local artists to respond to this billboard through visuals and text. These responses are now to be seen on our window front. We are proud that so many artists from our city got involved in this project, and excited that most of them are here with us today to share with you their experiences within this project. A short note about the exhibition itself. Those of you from Kansas City maybe know our event space on Main Street, a wide gallery space in a former juice shop behind a large window front. Besides our other cultural events we have presented, we also did several exhibitions and installations there, always inside, including an installation by local artists Armin Mühsam and Caleb Taylor, who have used the walls of our pop-up as canvas. This time, we offered our windows as canvas. We were hoping this is a good idea in these times in which we all have to stay physically distanced from each other. We cannot invite you into our space, but we can invite you to walk and to drive by the space, to experience these incredible artistic responses to Alisha's billboard. You can see the whole installation until December 5th. Since it is visible from the outside, the exhibition is open to the public 24/7. And we would like to invite all of you to stop by soon. Those of you who are not from Kansas City, please follow our social media channels, where we will show more photos and videos over the next weeks. And watch out for more Shaping the Past events in the next 2 months. One of them will be a discussion and video release talking about the Community Remembrance Project in Kansas City and the meaningful work the founders Glenn North and Stacy Pratt are doing. But back to today's event, and I promise I will be done in a second, but I would like to introduce you to the program and just some short Zoom housekeeping rules. This event will be 90 minutes long. It will be live streamed on Facebook, and it will be recorded as well, so we can make it available on our Vimeo page to everybody soon. After our welcomes, we will start with presentations. First, by project creator Alisha B. Wormsley, and then by Jada Patterson, the curator for the Kansas City iteration of There Are Black People in the Future. This will be followed by a part in which you will get to know each artist who will comment on the artwork they created in response to the billboard. Then the artist will be invited to a conversation followed by a Q&A with you. And for this last part, we encourage you to use the Q&A box, which you could start right away if you wanted. You find the Q&A box on the bottom of your screens, since you're all muted during the event. Now, I would like to hand over to our wonderful moderator for today, Kreshaun McKinney, still invisible for you, but soon here on this screen. Kreshaun is manager of audience engagement and at Kansas City's prestigious Nelson-Atkins Museum of Art, and part of the education division for over 15 years. Kreshaun has been instrumental in the development of several public programs that have greatly increased the cultural diversity of the museum's visitorship and program participation. She has also consulted numerous organizations here in the Midwest on ways to successfully implement diversity. Now, let me give the floor to Kreshaun to moderate the artist talk, I wanted to say. And thanks again to all of you for being here today.
Well, thank you, Utah. And hello, everyone. And welcome to today's panel discussion featuring the futuristic project, There Are Black People in the Future, from Pittsburgh-based artist Alisha B. Wormsley. Joining Alisha are Kansas City area artists and activists who contributed to this international project. So we have Izsys Archer, Jessica Ayala, Arie Bonner, Mona Cliff, José Faus, Sheri Purpose Hall, Jada Patterson, and Harold Smith. Unfortunately, our fellow artist Glyneisha Johnson couldn't be here with us today, but I'm thrilled to have you all here. So welcome, panelists. Hello, everybody. Great. So before we begin our discussion, I'd like to invite Alisha and Jada to give us a brief overview of the project and its Kansas City concept. So Alisha, I'm going to start with you first. Could you share with us just a bit about what Afrofuturism is, and then how There Are Black People in the Future initially came about?
Sure. I mean, I guess Afrofuturism is just thinking about Black futures. I think it's pretty, you know, it's a term, right, that was created for art identification purposes. And it was taken, just like all of those terms, it was taken by the group that it's refers to and used as a place of empowerment. I think that, you know, there has been, you know, what we call Afrofuturism, which is just forever. I mean, W.E.B. Du Bois wrote a futurist novel. You know, we have Martin Delaney in, you know, 1890 writing. So it's not like a new thing, it's just a new term. So there are Black people in the future. I mean, with that said, my work is really inspired by science fiction and science fiction and fantasy around Black narratives. And also I studied anthropology, and I would say like one thing that really inspired me was Zora Neale Hurston. She did a series of studies on Black churches in the rural South. And in one book she has called Sanctified Church, she writes how she started doing recordings of Black people speaking in tongues when they would, you know, when you're at like a heightened spiritual experience, you speak a language that is unknown to you. And in those recordings, she found traces of African dialects. And so, you know, in these spaces where, so after 400 years of being taken away from those languages and that ancestry, that it's still in our DNA, is amazing to me. It's X-Men. It's like all the sci-fi that I was into as a kid, real. It's Octavia Butler. It's all of these things are actually like the power of our consciousness and the power of our DNA. That's like the most futurist thing I could think of. And it's like, and it's always existed. So that kind of thinking, and then later on, that's really inspired my work. And then later on, when I was doing a residency in a neighborhood that I grew up in Pittsburgh, Homewood. I hadn't lived in Pittsburgh for 15 years. I graduated from high school, lived in California and New York, and then I came back. And the neighborhood that I grew up in, Homewood, which is a Black neighborhood in Pittsburgh, that has been surviving. It has been attacked over and over again by systemic racism, war on drugs, 1 and 2, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like thriving and surviving at the same time. And I'm walking around with kids, I'm showing them these experimental films that I've been making, inspired by those ideas that I was talking about with Zora Neale Hurston, and this kind of consciousness, this superpowered consciousness that we have. And the students were like, oh, I want to make a zombie film, and oh, this part of the neighborhood's perfect because it looks like an apocalypse happened here. And this is our neighborhood, you know? So I just really like, let's break that down. Let's think about this. Why does it look like that here? This is, you know, like we're living this kind of future film, this sci-fi film reality right now. And then also I'm trying to show them sci-fi, and I'm thinking about it, and it's like, oh, there's no Black people in these science fiction films. And so that is, you know, apparent to me. And these are some images from those films, those sci-fi films, the experimental films that I was making in Homewood, thinking about like just the resilience of also Black women are very prominent in my work. In these spaces, in this house that's falling apart, where when I was growing up, like the woman that lived there, this house was like immaculate, and just what happens. So we're working through that, and I'm just like ranting, and I say, you know what, there are Black people in the future, and that kind of encouraged me to move on. Yeah, should I keep going? Sorry.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you can just like scroll through, Yulia, just keep going like so while I'm talking. So then I started collecting objects and printing there are Black people in the future on them, like it was a ritual, like a mantra, like I'm gonna make this happen. You know, in fantasy film and sci-fi, there's always a prophecy. So this is my prophecy. And then as time, you know, and I did these different installations, and then, you know, I finished that work. That work was written about. Afrofuturism was a thing at the time, and I was done. But then a colleague asked me if I wanted to put the text on the billboard, that's the image right now, in a neighborhood that is highly gentrified. It's like it's at a different point as Homewood, right? It's another Black neighborhood, East Liberty in Pittsburgh, that has already gone through its survival and then has been taken and is completely gentrified. And now it's a completely different landscape. And so we put this text there, and the developers in the neighborhood were threatened by it, and they took it down. So, so then the city of Pittsburgh protested. I mean, you know, they were getting like 1,000 calls a day. The owner of the building that took the text down, they were getting so many calls. Pittsburgh was not having it. And I'm so thankful for that. And when we had community meetings, people would say, like, I feel like that text. My family lived here for generations, and now they just took me down too, basically. Like it's a metaphor. So I felt like I had to do something, and so I went to Heinz Endowments and I asked them to support this project where we put the text in residence, and we give mini grants to 11 artists in the community to, you know, kind of talk about the text in their pre-existing work. So not like, you know, starting new work based on my text, but really just like connecting with the text through what they're already doing, because they're already working in this space of like making sure that Black people are in the future. And it was amazing. And we had, you know, just like brilliant street artists. We had musicians who were talking about intersectionality with race and gender. We had nap rest doulas who created spaces for a group called Black Dream Escape Collective, and they create, you know, revolutionary spaces for Black and Indigenous people to rest. We had, you know, a Black mothers group, you know, Black Mama Mystics that had these like regular gatherings. We had just like so many different projects. There was anti-racist yoga. There was, you know, professional, like Black professionals in design, Black creative professionals. Like one artist started a docu-series on Black professionals in Pittsburgh and asking about, you know, how can they be more supported by the city. It is just like this amazing experience, and it really showed me, you know, like my practice has always been collaborative. It's always been about, you know, channeling funds. I've been, you know, I've had a certain amount of privilege and gotten funding and different things that I feel like everyone should receive. And so how can I take that privilege and give it, you know, and do like the anti-white supremacist model and give it to as many other people as possible. Mm-hmm. That's kind of how my practice works. So I, you know, it's in this project, and, you know, and because of Monument Lab, and I want to thank the Goethe-Institut. I want to thank Jutta and Julia for really supporting this. And the other institutes through Monument Lab, where I've been able to kind of replicate different aspects of this project and support other artists. So I'm constantly like going into the meeting, like how can we share this with as many other people? How can we, you know, be as equitable as possible, and put the control and the, you know, give the text away. You know, I just want to be like, I don't own language. That's kind of like a tool of the oppressor. It's also a tool of the oppressor to constantly set a space where we don't have time to dream, and we don't have time to really think about our futures. That's my 5-year-old. So I just want to, like, not only with this project, I want it to reflect a space where, one, I'm ensuring Black people that we are in the future, so that they don't have to worry about that, and that they can just like take the time to dream about what that could be like. And then also, you know, being as equitable as possible with resources, and making that a model that can be replicated again and again and again. So, and these are just some examples of it in different cases.
It's so incredibly powerful, what you've shared. And you've given certainly our viewers a lot to unpack already, certainly your fellow artists and panelists who want to be a part of this project. So it's great to hear how that legacy, I loved your thoughts on the superpower aspect of our history, what's in the DNA, the collaborative, the need for that collaborative aspect. So speaking of collaboration, I'm going to invite Jada to join us. And Jada, now your work is, there you are, your work is in the exhibition as well. So we'll hear more about that momentarily, but for right now, just after hearing Alicia's incredible remarks about the project, could you speak about your role and vision as the curator for the Kansas City showing of this project?
Definitely, yeah. Thank you so much, Alisha, for that, and Kreshaun. So when the Goethe-Institut and Alisha came to me with the project, I was so happy and excited that this project would get the chance to exist in Kansas City. It came really at a time where many Black voices began to rise in the city, along with all of the Black Lives Matter protests all throughout the summer, with the 6 massive Black Lives Matter murals that were painted across our city, along with the many other efforts in Kansas City over the summer. I saw this project as a way to uplift the voices of the folk who continue to do phenomenal work in our community. I wanted to invite a group of artists, I was asked to invite a group of local artists to respond to Alisha's proclamation. There are Black people in the future. I'm gonna say that again, like, there are Black people in the future is such a powerful statement in itself. And so I wanted to invite a mix of artists who work is both consists of visual work, but also artists who work in text-based mediums. And so it was also important to have a group of intergenerational artists in this group so that we weren't getting just one generation's idea of the future. That was really something that was really important for me in this Kansas City iteration. But most importantly, we wanted to amplify not only Black imaginative voices, but to also include our Black and Indigenous or brown and Indigenous voices to show that beauty and power in our solidarity with one another. So the artists, surprisingly, only had 2 weeks to complete their work, and I was absolutely amazed and just blown away to see what each person came up with in that short amount of time. The final piece sits in a prime location at the Goethe Pop Up, on their storefront, on the windows, right in the heart of our Crossroads Art District for everyone to see and pass through, driving through, walking through the city. And you can go up to the piece and not only see the artist's work, but this description of Alisha's impact, this larger scope of the work that she spoke of earlier in this newest iteration in Kansas City. And so I could not be more grateful and proud to see how it all unfolded in our community, and for our community to be introduced to such a beautiful project, to view it and just have that space, you know, to imagine how Alisha was describing earlier, and imagine what our futures might look like, and to be taken out of this present moment, if only, you know, for the smallest amount of time. And it's just important. And so I thank you, Alisha, for allowing us to occupy this space with you and everyone else whom this project has touched. So thank you so much.
That's just great, Jada. Just beautiful. Congratulations to you and to all of the participating artists for creating such an impactful piece. As you said, the space to imagine, and then what Alisha was talking about, that surviving and thriving simultaneously. And so the collaboration that you all have put together with these artists, beautiful show, beautiful exhibition, so powerful. Let's go ahead and see the presentations from your fellow panelists and artists. And so when I call on you, panelists, please repeat your name, title, and then briefly share how you chose to respond through your work to There Are Black People in the Future. So we're going to begin with Mona.
Hello, everybody. My name is Mona Cliff, and I am a multidisciplinary Indigenous artist. This piece that you're seeing right here, I created in response to There Are Black People in the Future. The text that you see is the Osage Orthography, and the words say Sape, ni Gashi, ni Aka, Ido Daha. And those words mean Black people exist in the future. And I wanted to use the Osage orthography. I myself am not Osage, but my husband is an enrolled member of the Osage Nation and my children are enrolled. I am Grovant and Assiniboine from Fort Belknap, Montana. But I do reside on Osage homelands and I do participate in the culture, and I felt like I wanted to acknowledge Osage homelands, which Kansas City resides on. And so I felt that I wanted to kill two birds with one stone, I guess, in a way. Acknowledging that statement, there are Black people in the future, with Osage orthography was important to me as a part of my own work as well. So this is what you're seeing. That's an Osage orthography. I think that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you so much, Mona.
Thank you.
Okay, now let's have Sheri.
Hello, my name is Sheri Purpose Hall. I am a spoken word artist, literary artist, and CEO of Poetry for Personal Power, where we do mental health, arts, entrepreneurship, and advocacy. The work that was done is actually a collaborative piece between Glyneisha Johnson and myself. And she did the visual art portion of it, and I actually had the words. That is the poem, Turned Tables. And this poem is really about how Black people, a lot of times, all we've ever had to hold on to are artifacts of our lives. Your grandmother's table. I still have the knife and cake slicer my grandparents used to cut their wedding cake with. If you're fortunate enough to be able to have that, and no matter how old and raggedy they may become over time, you still keep those things. Some of our people have not been fortunate enough to be able to hold on to all those things, but for those of us who have, even the raggedy carpet of the apartment, whatever it is, our homes become a museum. We really curate our homes. So the statement that Black people are in the future, there are Black people in the future, we also are able to take everything that we have gained with us into the future and teach our future from our past. Every vessel, every remnant, including our arts, our hip hop, our poetry, everything. And that is my contribution.
Thank you so much, Sheri. Now let's have Izsys and Jada.
Hey y'all, my name is Izsys Archer. I'm a photographer, mixed media artist, and poet. And Jada Patterson and I embarked on this project together. And I would definitely have to say our biggest inspiration came from a stack of hair magazines that I found in a beauty supply a few months ago when I was visiting back home. And the one thing that we knew for sure is that hair will forever, as it has always been, be an aspect of a collective Black identity, and the same exact creativity that our ancestors held within their palms and their fingertips will continue to evolve into different techniques, shapes, and styles that resemble some of royalty. And I think the best thing about this collaboration with my dear friend Jada was like picking 3 or 4 days out of the week and coming in the space of my home together with our big old collection of synthetic hairs, brushes, combs, oils, and gels to create these styles that y'all see here. And while discussing what Black hair will how Black hair would visually exist in the future, we were simultaneously engaging in this type of maternally rooted oral communication that preserves and passes down our histories, and in that same light, promises a future. Yeah, Izsys, you said that perfectly. And just thinking about how images of Black hair might look in the future, how, you know, that magazine that we looked through that was probably pictures taken a decade or two ago, how those will look in the future. Like what if images, like to get that detail in the braid, they just want to scan that braid to show you exactly what's there, take away that curvature of your head. And so we were just really having fun and being really playful with how Black images of hair will look in the future, down to the texture of that hair, to the packaging that it's wrapped in. And so it was just really, yeah, like a spiritual, but also like playful moment that we both got to share with each other.
Yes.
That's great. Well, thank you, Izsys and Jada. Let's now have Jose.
Hi, my name is José Faus. I'm a visual artist, performer, writer. For this piece, I actually went back to something I had done a while back. I came across a transcripts of the Amistad trial. John Quincy Adams was a defense attorney. And it's basically about the slave ship where the slaves themselves would be slaves because they never had become slaves, just kidnapped, overcame the ship and basically tried to force it back to Africa. The people that were steering the ship kind of tricked them so that they ended up in actually New England. And because the US at that time had outlawed the trade between the transatlantic trade, there was this real question about, well, what do you do with these people who have washed up? And so the idea became a fight over them being treated as property as opposed to people, which is kind of an interesting thing. So the name of the ship was the Amistad. I've always been engaged or kind of interested in the way that language works, right? So Amistad itself in Spanish means friendship. So all of a sudden you have a dichotomy that's taking place. And then the statement that's in this thing is basically from the poem that I wrote, a longer poem. So I distilled a piece out of it. And it says, on ship's deck was found a naked corpse enveloped in a pall of bombazine. Bombazine, a twill fabric of a silk or rayon warp and worsted filling, oft-dyed black for morning wear, that of which a lawyer's gown is made. So again, all of a sudden language starts to come in because this word bombazine, I had never heard it and it just like, boom. And so I looked at that word, I started to think, the thing that I find really interesting, the ambiguity that makes me attached to this is that it's a fabric that is either used for, off-dyed black and used for morning wear, but then it's also that of which a lawyer's gown is made. And in that word, it kind of encapsulates this whole thing, a history that is trying to be erased by killing it off, but yet here's this idea of justice. And I thought no better word kind of addressed that metaphor. So that's what I drew on. The piece itself is painted acrylic with gold fleck paint over the top. And that's it, thank you.
Thank you, Jose. And now we'll have Arie.
Hi, I'm Arie Bonner. I'm a visual artist and image maker. With this piece, I wanted to create an image that represented Black queer expression and representation. I grew up in Mississippi and I didn't see or experience a lot of queer representation that was meant for Black and brown kids. When I moved to Kansas City in 2015, I was exposed to a much larger community of diverse folks that considered themselves part of this queer community. What has become wildly obvious to me during the time I've been in Kansas City has been that KC boasts itself to be very queer-friendly and progressive. However, this acceptance is typically whitewashed and is only truly acceptable when your gender and sexual expression are in alignment with one another and or are easily understood and digested by the general public. When I think of Black people existing in the future, I imagine a thriving community a compassionate and open-minded community that is accepting of each other's differences, regardless of sexuality or gender expression. This artwork is a photograph of my sweet friend, Andy Gee, who agreed to share who they are when they're at home, safe and comfortable with themselves and those that love and accept them. My hope is that by showing Andy as a beautiful and angelic vision, plastered larger than life on the windows of the Goethe, and visible to the public from Main Street, we are highlighting the continued existence of Black, queer, and non-conforming bodies, and showing young Black people that may feel different, that they are valued and vital to our shared future. Thank you.
Thank you, Arie. All right, now we'll hear from Jessica.
Hello, everybody. Blessings. Okay. I'm very grateful to be here. I feel very inspired by every single person who has already talked and been present. This was a very spiritual experience for me. My name is Jessica Ayala. I am a multidisciplined Indigenous Colombian Americana spoken word artist. During COVID, I decided that I was going to go to the riverfront at sunset. That was very important to me. And it was during a time that there were so many of our relatives that were passing due to all of the hate and the current lynchings that's happening in our current state. And it was just a lot. And so when I would go to the riverfront, I would dance and I would pray and I would write poetry. This actually happened to be a poem that I wrote, and it became that for me. And so it was my love letter to my relatives and the way that I feel about them. Beloved one, you are here, shining in all your ancestral light. Past, present, and future, you are here, a beacon of Black light. Carrying the spirit of your ancestors, you are here, young, gifted, and Black joy, Black magic, Black light. Light is within you, beloved one, where the music of your spirit sings a song of self-acceptance, self-expression, self-love. This is the future, Black. And for me, it's truly my love letter to my relatives. And it has been an honor to be able to participate. It all happened. And then when I saw the very ending of the piece next to Arie's beautiful work, it all magically clicked. So it was a blessing. So this is my prayer and my love letter and how I truly feel about that poem. And thank you all for the opportunity to be able to occupy space together and to collaborate as Black and brown folk and to be in that space and in that light.
Thank you so much, Jessica. And now we'll hear from Harold.
Hello, my name is Harold Smith. I'm a visual artist and teacher in the Kansas City area. To me, the phrase, "there are Black people in the future," evokes a similar response as Black Lives Matter, Black is beautiful, Black girls rock, etc. How a person views that phrase, how they react, is framed by how they view Black people. Some are encouraged by the phrase, others are angered, many are threatened. Some see the phrase as an attack on their own humanity. Some see it as unpatriotic. Some see it as a religious attack, while others see it as just a plain and simple truth. Their internal viewpoint of Black people frames their response. So I took the words, "there are Black people in the future," and created images where those words were framed by the image of a Black man from the Man of Color series of paintings. So addressing the fact that when a person considers the existence of Black people in the future, their response is framed, shaped, and silhouetted by their own current viewpoint of Black humanity. I'm done.
Thank you so much, Harold. And now we're going to get ready for our group discussion, but what you've heard, audience, I hope that that is making quite an impression on you. Those stories that are being shared, what you all just spoke about, what inspired you, how you interpreted this project, so impactful. The care, the thought that you all put into it clearly shows by what you all have just so beautifully created. And so now we're going to jump into our group discussion. And I'm going to start with Alisha. And so Alisha, Jada certainly talked about her curatorial mission and vision for the Kansas City iteration of There Are Black People in the Future. But the project was sparked in your hometown, and it has traveled across the country. So Detroit, New York, Houston, Charlotte. So could you share briefly why it's important to you to bring your project to so many cities?
Sure. I actually think, I mean, I will say, when I did the project in Pittsburgh, you know, it was a reaction, right? And so, because I wanted to, it was taken down, and I wanted to support this community that, you know, it just went up on the billboard. No one asked for it, right? But when it was taken down, you know, the city fought back. And so I felt like, you know, and then I just really thought about this reactionary cycle. And so I did the project, you know, and I really thought about the kind of like artwork in residence project where we granted other artists and activists and educators to use the text in Pittsburgh, and really think about that. And I, you know, I really could think about it, and it really gave us a time. We had like a whole year to just kind of think about it. And even when we set it up, like everything was really intentional. Like we did, you know, as a group of grantees, like we did the dreaming workshops with Black Dream Escape. We did all these things. We had this time, and so so it just felt like a good model. It felt like something that could be replicated in other spaces. Mm-hmm. And so it wasn't even actually, and the fact that it went to other places wasn't completely intentional. That asked me, you know, can we use the billboard? Can we, you know, and then I talk to her about it. Like I make sure that I talk to everyone that approaches me about the text and tell them like what the full kind of, how full this project could be if they wanted to, you know, take different parts of it and adapt it to something that would work for their city or their space, their community. And so, to be honest, it's not, you know, I want it to be everywhere that Black people are, you know, like that's how I feel, but, you know, I don't have that choice. Like I'm not trying to control anybody. So like people can just really, you know, if they felt drawn to this mm-hmm. project, something inside of them is connected. We're connected through like a collective consciousness where they want to bring it to their space and then create something from it. That's like the most beautiful organic thing I could hope for, right? Like that's me kind of putting it out into the universe and the universe responding to it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, that is a fantastic response. And absolutely, where Black people are, the importance of that, the power of that. And so now, speaking of Black voices and the importance of that, this is my question for you all as the group. So this is for anyone that would like to answer. Once again, please raise your hand so that I can see it. When Black voices are prohibited or omitted, just as what you were talking about, Alisha, why is it important to you all as artists and activists to fight for the inclusion of Black voices? Show of hands, who would like to start us off? Okay, I see Izsys.
Yeah, so like, it's important to reiterate our presence in every space that we walk into, given Blackness is a part of everything, every aspect of this life, whether people recognize it or not. And we deserve the representation that not only our ancestors have fought for, but that we are going to continue to fight for our Black and brown kids. Like, it's important.
Indeed, we deserve the representation. Excellent. Thank you so much, Izsys. Okay, Arie, I see your hand.
I also think it's important that Black and brown people are telling their own stories and their own histories, because when non-Black people are telling stories for us, they are taking like what they've experienced with us and creating a monolithic experience as if they're speaking for this huge, diverse group of people, under the assumption that we all have the same beliefs, the same desires, and the same wants out of life, which is not true.
Okay, I saw a number of heads shaking on that. Okay, Jada, and then we'll go to Sheri.
Yeah, I agree with both Izsys and Arie. And just when Black folk from all different ranges of experiences, age groups, like hues of our skin color, when you start to hear the stories and their voices, when you start to get that range of stories, people start to understand the complexity of Blackness and Black people, the same way that we have understood the complexity of, say, white folk through all the movies that we have watched, you know, throughout our lives, through all the books we have read. Like, we have understood the complexity of their lives. Now it's time for you to understand the complexity of us. Like, because now we have that platform that we were denied for so long, too long, and now we can truly show you, you know, the complexity, so that you won't have to, you know, access all the time, and like we won't have to take that time out of our day to explain ourselves to you. You can then start to learn from our stories.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jada. Sheri.
I agree with everything that was previously said. I am a person who's an advocate for owning your own narrative.
Sheri, I hate to interrupt you. Could you speak just a little louder? I'm sorry.
Sure. I agree with everything that everyone said. I am an advocate for owning your own narrative. We have to own it. We have to share our own narratives. I teach multicultural competencies. And I think something that is missed upon a lot of people when they say Black, they don't get that is also still multicultural inside of Black. That is intersectional, that inside of being Black, a person can also be blind, and blind has its own culture. So when you have someone telling their own narrative, it helps you to shape beyond their skin color exactly who they are and the context they live in. Because right now, in the history, we've been playing a game of telephone, where the original person whispers something in one person's ear, and then it gets whispered down the line, and eventually it loses the original meaning. I am here for Black people never losing their original meaning, whatever cultural context they come from. So it has to be shaped and solidified. And the only way to really do that is allow our voices to be heard. So voice suppression comes at a disadvantage for our children and for ourselves. We have to continue to activate our voices.
Well said, Sheri. Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to this question before we move on to the next one? Anyone else? I've got to scroll in order to see everyone. I've got everyone? Okay. All right, so my next question is for Jessica, Mona, and Jose. So Jada shared that it was important to her that the Kansas City exhibition be multi-generational and be multiracial. So while the premise of there are Black people in the future speaks to Black cultural experiences, what was important and spoke to you to become involved with the project? And are there any parallels between your own cultural and racial experiences? Okay, Jose, I saw your hand raised first, so we'll start with you.
I thought back, I was at a panel discussion a few years back, talking about race and class and stuff. And there was a man that stood up and said, you know, this was, I think, the second term of Obama. He stood up and he said, you know, I don't see any reason why Latinos would make cause with African Americans or Blacks in kind of like joining partnerships, right? He said he felt like, you know, the conditions for Latinos were getting better. And so why would we want to throw our hands in with the struggles of other folks? And I thought, I think this was a thing. I think that, you know, and I thought this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, because every time I function in the world, even though I project myself in a certain way, I'm very aware of the other thing that attaches to my being there, you know. It's brown, it's another culture, it's another perspective. And to me, it's like, I don't have that in common with the people that are saying, hey, you should band with me. Like if white folk are saying, hey, we're all in this common thing together. If you haven't heard my story, then how could you possibly not think that I would be more aligned with the oppressed than with the oppressor, you know? And to me, that's always been kind of an understood thing. The other part is too that, you know, growing up as a youth, I was very much aware of walking while brown, driving that brown. Before I knew it was like, you know, walking or talk, you know, Black. In Overland Park, I would get stopped all the time. You know, there were not very many brown people back at that time. And it just kind of solidified to me that, you know, I do have more in common in the struggle with folk that have tints and shades of brown and Black than I do with folk on the other side.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Jose. Mona, and then Jessica, I'll come to you.
Hi. I wanted to participate. Well, I was, you know, asked, and I really wanted to say thank you to Jada and Alisha and the Goethe-Institut for, you know, reaching out to Indigenous voices. I feel that we're so marginalized as it is because of our population and, you know, our representation within the American, you know, American society. I feel that within my own work, visibility is really important because we need representations. Like they said, everybody said, we need representations from our own people, and our shared experiences, you know, of oppression in a way is what brings us all together, because we can all understand how it feels to be on the other side. And so, you know, visibility of contemporary Indigenous issues is important. I mean, we have to fight daily for basic dignity, and, you know, being included in the conversation is like super important. And I just am like so grateful to be able to participate. So thank you.
Thank you, Mona. Okay, Jessica.
So I immigrated to the States as a child. And one of the things I didn't realize at the time, because I was learning how to speak the English language and really just focusing just on that, was once I actually grasped a concept, I realized that I didn't grow up around any of my relatives, uncles, aunties, cousins, you know, grandparents. It just didn't happen because we were so far away. And what ended up showing up was the Black community loving on me and showing up for me when I didn't know how to show up for myself. And it's been like that my whole life. And I love Black people. I love my family. I love my relatives. They are an encompassment of my melanin and our unique and very courageous struggle. You know, mi lucha es tu lucha. That's something that I was saying all summer when we were doing the Black Lives Matter protest. Mi lucha es tu lucha. And it translates to my struggle is your struggle. And, you know, we stand in solidarity as brown and as Indigenous people to all lives, all Black lives matter. And to us, it's such a beautiful, we encompass such a beautiful array of fabrics and beautiful colors. And it's a privilege and an honor to occupy this space with you all and to feel in solidarity. So that's my contribution. I was raised around my folks my whole life, and you are my family and my relatives. And I'm just so grateful to have this unique Midwestern experience and then go back to Colombia, you know, and vibe with my people home and have that whole experience, but also be able to educate, you know, my own family about Black lives and how beautiful they are.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Jessica, as well as to you, Jose and Mona, for sharing. Indeed, we're all fighting for that common fight for dignity, for our dignity, our representation. Oh, Alisha, I see your hand raised.
I just wanted to respond to this also, because it's really important to me that that these projects are open to various shades of Black and brownness. There's like one thing I wanted to say, like there is a quote from the Combahee River Collective that says, "Liberation of all oppressed peoples necessitates the destruction of the political and economic systems of capitalism and imperialism, as well as patriarchy." Meaning that if Black women were free, it would mean that everyone else would have to be free, since the systems of since our freedom would necessitate the destruction of all systems of oppression. So for me with that, like this work always begins with Black women. My work always begins with Black women, because that fight creates freedom for all. So that whenever we say, that's what I think, you know, like in this all lives matter, whatever argument, what they're not getting, like the only reason why the United States is anywhere near democracy is because of the fight that Black people have done, that our ancestors have done for this country to create something even resembling a democracy. So the fact that if, you know, this like there are Black people in the future is essentially for everybody, and that has to be like really understood throughout like this fight that we have together. So I, you know, like this, my projects are always open, but you know, like that, but that's where my fight starts.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your words, Alisha, as they have clearly inspired this whole group here. And so we have time for one more group question. And Harold, I'm going to ask you to lead us off on this one. It's, why do you feel there's a need for this type of art that encompasses the power of words with the power of images to inspire public action?
Okay.
And that's for everyone, but I'm asking Harold to start us off.
Yes, ma'am. In my thinking is that, you know, visual art, you know, it alludes to things, it provides notions of things, it suggests things. But when you get to the written word, it's blunt, it's plain, it puts it out there. It makes it very, very undeniable, let's put it that way. If it's a painting, a person could look at it and be like, oh, I don't see that. When it comes to the words, if you know the language, then you know exactly what it's saying. So I think that in this context, it's important to combine both direct and indirect ways of expressing the viewpoint. that there are Black people in the future. I think that by combining the actual written word with the art itself, I just think it creates an interesting mix of the direct and the indirect.
Absolutely. And who else would like to answer? Go ahead, Jose.
It's interesting because as a writer and a visual artist, I've always struggled with the idea of how do you make both come together, right? So I've always maintained the written word on one part as a language that evokes something different for me, as opposed to the visual one, which is different kinds of vocabulary, right? But I have found, I think, more resonance when I can combine the two, right? Like Harold said, it's a little mix of the direct and in the indirect, but it's also a little mix of the ambiguous and known kind of into it, right? And I think that kind of adds to the language. So for me, I've gotten a lot more out of those pieces. I've been able to combine both elements in. I need to do more of them, but I think they do open up a broader perspective to go and dig into.
Thank you so much, Jose. I'm going to scroll my screen here and see anyone else that would like to answer this question. All right, I don't want to miss anyone. Okay, and actually, I said it was the last question. Well, maybe not. We've got just a few more minutes. It'd be great if you all have shared so much and you've heard from each other. I don't know if this is the first time that you all have collectively had the opportunity to hear from each other, but just wondering if there's anything anyone would like to comment on from what you've heard from your fellow artists. Back to you, Jose.
I just want to comment on Mona's piece. I follow Mona on Instagram, so I was seeing that she was constructing it, but she wasn't telling. I didn't even know she was in the show, honestly. I texted her. But I love the topography, the way that you use the Osage iconography in the background, and then the language, and then, I don't know, it's a beautiful piece to me. It just really drew me in. So I just wanted to acknowledge that part of that.
Thank you. I had done a previous piece here in Lawrence and the public art project. I really wanted to focus on Native visibility and representation within my community. And there is no Native art here in Lawrence. And we are the center, we have Haskell Indian Nations University where all tribes come from all over parts of the country and there's no real representation. And so a lot of the artists and people here in the community are trying to change that now. And we are on Kansa and Kaw land and Osage land. And so it felt appropriate to use that orthography. Plus it's very beautiful. So I just want to like elbow my way into the world and be like, this is our language. And this was here before anybody, anybody who was non-native stepped foot here. This was spoken, these words were spoken here. And so that's what I wanted to acknowledge was that. So thank you, Jose, I appreciate that.
Okay, Sheri?
So Jada was there when I was totally fangirling.
A little louder, Sheri.
Jada was there when I was totally fangirling the entire installation. Going up and down the block, taking pictures of it, no matter the glare, the sun, whatever. And I am a super fan of all the pieces. Jessica, I read your words and I knew they were your words. I read them, I was like, that's my sister. But the piece that really got me, of course, outside of seeing my own, I know that's a bit like, oh my God. But seeing Arie's piece, if people who are online, if you're watching this, please go see the entire installation. I found myself staring at the image and it staring back at me, and we were having a moment. Like this image was dancing towards me and a ghost of it to the side, like we were having a moment. the classical way that this person looks in human form with the, I don't know exactly what fabric that is that they're wearing, white satin, white silk, the way the light hit it, the black and white, it is haunting and beautiful. And it's almost like the past and the future dancing and coming together. So that is what I wanted to say. I think all of them were beautiful. And I also told Jada about their piece because they have one piece down at the corner that has a pin curl. Oh, that's the whole struggle of Black womanhood, that technique. So I encourage everyone to go see it, to enjoy the artwork as much as I have.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, amen to all of that.
I think
actually, oh, Jada, you were going to speak, but I was going to ask you, can you show real quickly some of the install shots?
Yep, that's exactly what I was going to say now.
Oh,
would be a
take it away.
time. Yeah, so this is the first iteration where we put up the billboard of Alicia's statement. And this is, yeah, the windows, pre-install. This is our blueprint. And more install shots. And then, yeah, do we have any shots of it, the final pieces installed? Yeah, so there goes Harold's pieces. Which Harold, are those, so those were some paintings and then you went and put them inside of this text, there are Black people in the future, right?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And then, yeah, Arie, did you have something to say too? Because I saw you with your hand raised.
I was just going to respond to Sheri and say thank you, because for me, I'm a very visual person and I'm not always the best with words, so it's sometimes difficult to pair like my thoughts through words with my images, and I just really appreciate the words that Sheri shared.
Excellent. And Jada, oh, yep, go ahead. You've got another image there. Beautiful. Oh, I think Jada's muted.
Yeah, and I really just wanted the audience to get an idea of how all these images looked at the final install in case you weren't able to see it in person yet. Yeah.
Well, beautiful, beautiful job. The show is truly moving, and I know for our viewers, when you have the opportunity to see it firsthand, you are going to be moved by it as much as I was. Sheri certainly said it perfectly. And so now I'm going to give our wonderful artists and panelists a round of applause here. You all have done an outstanding job. Great discussion. Thank you, Alisha. Thank you, Jada, for your vision. All of you contributing in the most incredible, unique, and beautiful ways. And now we're going to open this up to our audience. So just going to take a second here to transition from speaking with you all now to speaking with our audience. And just a few reminders of housekeeping for our virtual audience out there. When you are submitting your questions, once again, please use the Q&A box that Yuta mentioned earlier. I see plenty of you have already submitted questions, so that's great. And for those of you that would still like to submit questions, please include who the question is for, if it's for particular individuals or for the whole group. And then panelists, once again, please raise your hand when you'd like to speak so that I can call on you. All right, so we've got our first question here. And this is from Susan. And so the question is, how has life in the age of COVID changed the way you share your art and communicate its message with your potential audiences? And how has your audience response changed? And that is open to anyone who would like to answer. Just need a show of hands. Okay, I see Sheri and I saw Alisha.
I will say, as soon as the lockdown hit here, we all went home. I sent everybody from the company home. I've been doing everything online. I only came out of my house probably starting in July, and that's not even a consistent. I control my work environment. So I do literature and live performance, and not being able to feel the energy all the time from the audience, it's very difficult. It's very different. But to that end, I've also been able to do workshops to help other students know how to work this kind of a platform as well. And in this platform, we have been able to create more communities. So the community has reached to London, France, Canada. My regular open mics bring people in who are not even in Kansas City. But even with this response, I was just got a message from a friend who's like, my COVID test came back negative. So we have quite a few more celebrations as well. Chagrin.
Thank you, Sheri. I think I saw Alisha and Jada. Did you also have your hand? Okay, I see Jessica, Alisha.
I'll just say real quickly, because there were a few hands, but yeah, I would like, just an example would be that I would be in Kansas City, able to meet all of you and, you know, exchange words and energy and all of those things. And I'm so thankful that we're doing it through this machine, but you know, that is something that has changed my work a lot, because it is collaborative, and I do like to go to the communities where this text is being used, and, you know, and have necessary conversations and interactions and all of those things, and that's not happening. But still, like, that's why I'm extra thankful for Jada. And just like, so glad that she could, you know, connect and already have those connections and make this work.
Excellent. Thank you, Alisha. Okay, Jessica, I know I saw your hand. And then Izsys.
So I was getting ready to go on tour when everything shut down. So I had a whole tour that completely canceled, and it was one of those moments where our band shifted from a tour to trying to make music videos. So that's where we're at right now. We're making music videos and streaming live and participating in live festivals. I agree with Sheri, it's not the same because it's just us, you know, pounding on a bunch of drums in, you know, a garage. And, you know, you don't feel the energy of the audience. But I think that it is one of those moments where I feel like I've been writing more now than I think ever. And it's just because it's been allowing me the opportunity to really sit home and, you know, work from home. And, you know, there's really not many places you can go. I mean, I've been down to the riverfront. It's a safe place to be. And it just inspires me to say, well, maybe this is the time to do some more songwriting and some more poetry and have conversations with myself about everything that's showing up. You know, we say, you know, Nina Simone says that we're a reflection, you know, of what we're experiencing in real time. And so it's definitely allowed me the opportunity to do a lot of writing, and excited to get to hibernating and doing some more writing that'll be produced in the new year.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. Izsys, will do you, and then we're going to move on to our next question.
For sure. So I'm still in school. I'm a junior in the photography department at Kansas City Art Institute. So all of our classes moved online. So we don't have sort of these resources that we are used to having, like a print center, you know what I mean? Like, so for me, it's been more like using more sustainable materials that I've already accumulated over like the years I've been in school, and figuring out how my Black body is seen over like a webcam or on these online platforms that I'm not really used to, and sort of like my classmates, navigating those conversations with them over Zoom is kind of difficult. So yeah, it's been really a learning curve, but we prosper no matter what. And sort of similar to Jessica, I've been writing a lot more these days and getting my thoughts out on paper. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Izsys. Thank you all for answering that question. We're going to move on to our next one. Okay, so I have, for the artists who evoked history in their pieces / responses to Alicia's work, why did you feel inclined to reference the past in your ruminations and projections of the future? So that's to anyone. And I see we have several questions, so we'll try to limit it to 2 responses per question. Okay, Jose, take it away.
For me, it was finding these records. They're actually in the National Archives of the trial of the Amistad survivors, right? It's like I'm thinking back, okay, that took place in the 1840s. 180 years later, we're still talking about these issues, but yet very much the people are here, right? So my idea was, in looking at the past, you find the reasons for why we will exist in the future, right? So the conditions that we're still having to deal with, they existed 200 and some years ago. Actually, the first Spaniards were, I think, in Florida in the 1540s. So almost 200, 400 years, 500 years. We have this history, but we haven't been able to erase it, though all our materials are erased. I didn't get this history in school. I didn't learn about the Amistad. I didn't learn about anything in school. It was only afterwards that I find it, because, you know, you study history, you go look at sources. And we haven't been able to erase that. And in the meantime, all those conditions are still here, but the people are still here. There's absolutely no way that they're going to disappear in the future. And to me, it was kind of like looking at the past tells us again, it reinforces our future, our present and our future.
Thank you so much, Jose. Okay, I saw, and I'm making sure I'm not missing anybody on this side. Okay, I'm scrolling for hands raised. I saw, okay, Mona. Oh boy, more hands than we can handle. Okay, I'm going to give this one to Mona.
Okay, well, I think that sometimes people will have this understanding about timelines in a linear way, that it's not cyclical, and that, you know, we can't exist in the present without the past or the future. We're constantly, it's always together. And so referencing the past is also referencing the future, because how can we understand where we're going if we don't know where we've been and where we're at now? And I think that's important to understand that. I mean, like with the Osage, you know, people have this understanding about natives, indigenous people, that we're all relics of the past, but we're contemporary people thriving. And this orthography is from the past, but it's being used now. It's something that's constantly, you know, trying to be pushed forward by teaching your children. So, you know, we're taking these traditions and we're also teaching our children. So I don't know if that answers the question, but I feel like linear understanding of time, it needs to be taken into a cyclical way of understanding.
Thank you, Mona. Okay, I'm already breaking my own rule. Sheri, then we've got to move on to that next question.
My sentence in response to this, basically, when we talk about the history of Black people, the first thing that's mentioned is slavery, and I felt it was important to highlight more than that in the past because we're more than that in the future.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Sheri. Okay, now we're going to move on to our next question. I have, what can non-BIPOC allies do to help amplify the voices and projects, fellow BIPOC creatives and peers? I think that's help amplify the voices and projects of fellow BIPOC creatives and peers. Okay, Jada?
I think that the best way is to give up your platform, like give it to us, because like we have not inherited that. We have not inherited these spaces to like how in this project to like just display images of ourselves on a storefront. Like give us these spaces, these platforms to write our future, write our stories. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jada. Okay, I have a question here from Angela for Harold. Your Black Lives Matters mural at Briarcliff is fabulous. Were you creating your concepts at the same time for the mural design and this work in the pop-up?
Well, short answer is no. I actually had the mural design, and that was done before I started on this one. But, you know, being a visual artist, I think there's probably some connections probably came from the same well, you know, but I didn't work on them collaboratively, no.
Okay, thank you, Harold. And now the next question for the group is, first of all, this is from Benjamin, and Benjamin is thanking all of you for your contributions. I am Benjamin from the Netherlands, Black, and find it beautiful how indeed Blackness can propel BIPOC mobilization in the support of all Black lives. I was wondering how today's conversation might inform your methods of collaboration in iterating Blackness in your future art. Who would like to answer that question? And do I need to repeat any of the questions? I know that one was a bit lengthy. Okay, Sheri, see your hand raised.
My work is always informed by Blackness since I live in the skin. However, today's conversation, even the conversation surrounding COVID, since COVID hit, I've been absolutely terrible on email, just completely blunt. I'm exhausted. I have like 10 emails. So someone sends me an email, I answer it a week later. And what I miss is being able to collaborate in person. And anything from today's conversation, that's what I really want to see, is further in future collaborations to continue to highlight this multiculturally and with Black and Brown people, because all of the voices are important to come together to lift our narratives.
Thank you, Sheri. Anyone else for that question? I'm gonna scroll, make sure. Okay. Jose, Izsys, is that you as well? Okay, just Jose, all right.
I just wanted, I think Sheri really brought it back up, that idea of this COVID is kind of like made us reach out to others in really strange sort of ways. And I think the other thing it has done, it has really, for me, I just had a conversation with somebody this morning. The thing that I have found really most uplifting, or at least gives me hope, is the friendships I have, right? And I have found out that some friendships have really meant a lot. I didn't realize the degree to which they meant a lot to me. And it's been just that unconditional support that we give each other and sometimes take for granted. And I know artistically, there is this group of artists that I just think all of a sudden I feel this kinship with, and I think in this group, definitely, the way that we speak, we're adapting to a new way, really, because it's not going to go back the same way. It's not going to be the same. And I think by this, we're kind of establishing those rules of how we're going to do it. And I'm excited about that. I really am.
Thank you, Jose. Well, this is actually our last question, and many of you have already touched on this when you were speaking your presentations, but for anyone that would like to elaborate on their art process, the question is asking all of you to please talk about the mediums that you use within your work. And that'll be our final question. Okay, now that is a hand raised. Izsys, yes. Okay, then I'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, maybe me and Jada can talk about this together.
Okay.
But we decided to use a flatbed scanner as our choice of camera, sort of this unconventional way of capturing an image that does a magnificent job at capturing the detail right down to the very pore and your scalp, like, you know, how well you can see that swoop that Sheri was talking about that takes a lot of time to accomplish, as well as the other sort of adornment on our heads and our earrings that you can just see really in crisp and clear.
Yeah, time, hair, grease, gel, jewelry, our skin, like our hands.
Yeah, those are definitely. Yep.
Wonderful. Okay, let's see. Maybe I can get one more in there before we have to wrap it up. Okay, Mona, you'll take us out.
All right. The text, I consulted a member of the Osage tribe who's also my father-in-law, Larry Sellers. So I'd like to, give him a thank you. He helped me translate the words into their Black people in the future. And so, doing that process and also bringing in, the background, I painted it in acrylic. So it's very straightforward. It's just acrylic paint, And so the backgrounds, though, are also representative of the Osage regalia and ribbon work that people use, too. So I just wanted to put that in there. But this was amazing. I really thank you guys. I mean, this was amazing to be able to connect to you all and have this experience and come together and move forward into the future. Thank you so much. And thank you, Kreshaun.
Well, thank you, Mona, because basically you gave the closing remarks. That's the prediction for this fantastic program.
Right.
I wish we had more time to continue our Q&A with our virtual audience out there, and certainly with all of you wonderful artists, but we are at time. And so final round of applause for all of you. Excellent job. Thank you to our wonderful, talented Kansas City artist and activist, Alisha B. Wormsley from Pittsburgh, for bringing her vision to this project. And then Izsys Archer, Jessica Ayala, Arie Bonner, Mona Cliff, José Faus, Sheri Purpose Hall, Jada Patterson, the curator, and Harold Smith. Thank you all for sharing your wonderful voices and talents with this project. And then I absolutely have to give a very generous thank you to our hosts, Yuta Bainan and Yulia Patakin of the Goethe Pop Up Kansas City. You ladies have been absolutely fantastic. And then the Goethe-Institut, Monument Lab, and the Federal Agency for Civic Education. And finally, a special thank you to all of you out there, our virtual audience, for joining us today. We invite you to check out the website's link in the chat, where you can learn more about There Are Black People in the Future. And we also invite you to safely view in person the storefront exhibition, which is located at 1914 Main Street in the heart of the Kansas City Crossroads. Take care, everyone. Be safe. Bye-bye. Thank you all so much.